the father of civil rights activism and the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University in 1895. W.E.B. Du Bois was an American sociologist, a scholar, a leader, a revolutionary thinker, a socialist, a historian, a Pan-Africanist, civil rights activist, one of the most influential black intellectuals of all time, and the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University in 1895. A man whose words and actions shaped the fight for racial equality in America. This is the story of W.E.B. Du Bois, a trailblazer in the struggle for black rights. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois, also known as W.E.B. Du Bois, was born on February 23, 1868, in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, USA. Unlike many black Americans of his time, Du Bois grew up in a predominantly white community where he experienced limited racism, until he became older and realized the harsh reality of America's racial divide. From a young age, he excelled in academics and dreamt of using education as a tool to uplift his people. In 1884, he graduated from Great Barrington High School with honors. When he decided to attend college, the congregation of his childhood church, the First Congregational Church of Great Barrington, raised the money for his tuition. Du Bois taught school during the summer of 1886 after his sophomore year. His travel to and residency in the South was Du Bois' first experience with Southern racism, which at the time encompassed Jim Crow laws, bigotry, suppression of black voting, and lynchings, and many others. Du Bois resolved that one could not be a calm, cool, and detached scientist while Negroes were lynched, murdered, and starved, and realized that the cure wasn't simply telling people the truth, it was inducing them to act on the truth. Du Bois attended Fisk University, a historically black college, and later in 1890, Harvard awarded Du Bois his second bachelor's degree, cum laude, in history. And in 1891, Du Bois received a scholarship to attend the sociology graduate school at Harvard. He later studied in Germany, where he was influenced by European intellectuals and socialist ideas, which shaped his vision of racial progress. He became the first African American to earn a PhD from Harvard University in 1895. He wrote about his time in Germany as, "I found myself on the outside of the American world, looking in. With me were white folks, students, acquaintances, teachers, who viewed the scene with me. They did not always pause to regard me as a curiosity or something subhuman. I was just a man of the somewhat privileged student rank, with whom they were glad to meet and talk over the world, particularly the part of the world whence I came." In 1903, Du Bois published The Souls of Black Folk, a groundbreaking collection of essays in which he introduced the concept of double consciousness, the struggle of black Americans to reconcile their African heritage with their American identity. Du Bois boldly challenged the accommodationist views of Booker T. Washington and also rejected Frederick Douglass's plea for black Americans to integrate into white society and advocated instead for full civil rights and higher education for African Americans. Du Bois felt that African Americans should fight for equal rights and higher opportunities rather than passively submit to the segregation and discrimination of Washington's Atlanta Compromise. He wrote, "We are Negroes, members of a vast historic race that from the very dawn of creation has slept, but half awakening in the dark forests of its African fatherland." He also published Strivings of the Negro People, in which he stated that African Americans should embrace their African heritage while contributing to American society. Du Bois coined the phrase, the submerged 10th, to describe the black underclass, and later in 1903, he popularized the term, the talented 10th, which applied to society's elite class. His terminology reflected his opinion that the elite of a nation, both black and white, were critical to achievements in culture and progress. He performed the first case study of a black community in the United States named the Philadelphia Negro, published in 1899 while he was teaching at Atlanta University. His students considered him to be a teacher that was brilliant, but aloof and strict. He wrote many books and articles and expressed his onion freely on issues. Some of his books include The Souls of Black Folk, Strivings of the Negro People, The Quest of the Silver Fleece, The Negro, and many more. Du Bois believed that a talented tenth, an elite group of educated black leaders, could guide the race toward equality. In 1909, he co-founded the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, becoming the editor of its magazine, The Crisis. The NAACP was an American civil rights organization formed in 1909 as an interracial endeavor to advance justice for African Americans and colored minorities in America. Through this platform, he exposed racial injustices and advocated for political action, but not much transformation took place. Du Bois was the first African American invited by the American Historical Association, AHA, to present a paper at their annual conference. Du Bois' fight for racial justice was not without struggle. He clashed with fellow black leaders and faced opposition from white supremacist systems. His calls for activism made him a controversial figure, and as America entered World War I, he urged black soldiers to fight for democracy abroad, only to see them return to continued racism at home. A Jamaican activist, Marcus Garvey, the promoter of the Back to Africa movement and founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, denounced Du Bois's efforts to achieve equality through integration and instead endorsed racial separatism. Du Bois initially supported the concept of Garvey's Black Star Line, a shipping company that was intended to facilitate commerce within the African diaspora. But later Du Bois became concerned that Garvey was threatening the NAACP's efforts, leading Du Bois to describe Marcus Garvey as fraudulent and reckless. Responding to Garvey's slogan, Africa for the Africans, Du Bois said that he supported that concept, but denounced Garvey's intention that Africa be ruled by African Americans. Du Bois wrote a series of articles attacking Garvey's movement, calling him the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race in America and the world. Du Bois and Garvey never made a serious attempt to collaborate, and many people believe their dispute was partly rooted in the desire of their respective organizations, NAACP and UNIA, to capture a larger portion of the available philanthropic funding at the time. Du Bois wrote in one of his books, "Between me and the other world, there is ever an unasked question. How does it feel to be a problem? One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two warring ideals in one dark body, whose dogged strength alone keeps it from being torn asunder." He would not Africanize America, for America has too much to teach the world and Africa. He would not bleach his Negro soul in a flood of white Americanism, for he knows that Negro blood has a message for the world. He simply wishes to make it possible for a man to be both a Negro and an American, without being cursed and spit upon by his fellows, without having the doors of opportunity closed roughly in his face. During the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s, Du Bois played a key role in supporting black artists and thinkers, encouraging a new era of cultural pride. Yet, he also became increasingly disillusioned with America's racial progress, leading him to explore socialism and Pan-Africanism. Du Bois attended the first Pan-African Conference, held in London in July 1900. He closed the conference by delivering a speech entitled, "To the Nations of the World," in which he asked European leaders to ensure equal opportunity for all races, allow their colonies the right to self-government, and to recognize the political and human rights of African Americans. In that speech, Du Bois stated that the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. On socialism, Du Bois concluded that socialism might be a better path towards racial equality than capitalism. He wrote, "I am not a communist. On the other hand, I believe that Karl Marx put his finger squarely upon our difficulties." In 1946, Du Bois wrote articles giving his assessment of the Soviet Union. He did not embrace communism, and he criticized its dictatorship. However, he felt that capitalism was responsible for poverty and racism, and felt that socialism was an alternative that might ameliorate those problems. He said the Soviet Union explicitly rejected racial and class distinctions and concluded that the USSR was the most hopeful country on earth. He continued to believe that capitalism was the primary culprit responsible for the subjugation of colored people around the world, and although he recognized the faults of the Soviet Union, he continued to uphold communism as a possible solution to racial problems. In 1945, Du Bois attended the fifth and final Pan-African Congress in Manchester, England. The Congress was the most productive of the 5 Congresses, and there Du Bois met Kwame Nkrumah, the future first president of Ghana, who later invited him to Africa. As time passed, Du Bois' radical views led to government scrutiny. In the 1950s, during the Red Scare, he was accused of being a communist. Frustrated with America's slow racial progress, he moved to Ghana in 1961 at the invitation of President Kwame Nkrumah. There, he worked on an encyclopedia of African history, but passed away on August 27, 1963, at the age of 95, just one day before the historic march in Washington. W.E.B. Du Bois' legacy endures. His works remain essential in understanding the struggle for Black equality, and his vision of activism, education, and racial pride continues to inspire movements today. He was not just a man of his time, he was a man ahead of his time. He was awarded a gold medal for his role as compiler of the materials, which are housed at the Library of Congress. Du Bois said, "Either America will destroy ignorance, or ignorance will destroy America." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories of history's greatest figures. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving for justice. Bye.